The HX Collective explores the human experience through three main channels of life: work, relationships, and self. With raw, authentic conversations, the podcast investigates how challenges can become powerful teachers, leading to personal growth and deeper connections. Rooted in humanity-centered design, each episode reflects a commitment to doing good and doing well, featuring diverse voices and generational perspectives. Expect gripping stories of struggle and success, with thought-provoking discussions and concrete tools and tactics that encourage you to rethink your relationship with distress, helping you to establish your full human experience. This is the HX Collective channel.
Hello, friends, and welcome to our next episode of the HX Collective podcast. Today is a really special day because I'm introducing you to one of our newest HX allies, Suzanne Massel. As we'll hear in a moment, Suzanne has a rich background and set of experiences that are all connected in the through line of elevating human flourishing, which is exactly why we're so delighted to have her become a part of our community as a person who's contributing to elevating our human flourishing and our human experience through our three lenses. We're going to talk about what that means at work, what that looks like through relationships, and ultimately what that means as we think about human flourishing and ourselves. So, Suzanne, welcome to the HX Collective. Welcome to our allies, and welcome to introduce you to our audience today. It's so great to have you.
It's so great to be with you, Deb. Thank you so much for including me in this. I'm thrilled.
Well, if we take a little backstory and set some context, you and I have had decades of exposure to one another. And we first met, you were practicing law, and then subsequently went in-house, and now have launched an entrepreneurial venture, which is really all about the human experience when it comes to executive coaching and professional development. I would love to set the stage a bit and first just give us a little bit more about your background so our audience can get to know you, and then we'll talk about your philosophies as it relates to human flourishing.
Sounds great. Well, again, thank you for having me. You're correct. We met, I think it was well over a decade ago, and I always admire your work. So I'm so glad that the universe has allowed us to overlap again. Yeah. So presently, as you said, I am a certified professional coach, mostly working with attorneys, executives, and really professionals at any level. I started out, I am an attorney. I've spent 33 years practicing before pivoting. I was a trial lawyer, litigation partner for over 2 decades. Then I pivoted to in-house counsel in various size organizations. And in several of those roles, inherited the HR director as part of my responsibilities, which really gave me a front row seat into how people sort of grow, thrive, and struggle in the workplace. A cancer diagnosis, which is in the rearview mirror, thankfully, caused me to pause and say, what do I really want the rest of my professional life to look like? And that gave me a rich opportunity to dig deep into what I find important. And throughout every job I've ever had, from beginning to sort of, more leadership roles, one of the things that brought me so much pleasure and still does is supporting others in growth and development and figuring out meaning. And so that caused me to pivot into professional coaching, which is, I mentioned, I now do certified professional coach. And I love working with individuals and organizations to see where the intersection of humanity and business can be most effective for everybody involved.
I love it. Well, Susan, first of all, I do want to echo the thrill that a cancer diagnosis is an experience that I'm sure was a fantastic teacher, and I'm so thrilled that it's behind you. It's also a testimony, and I hope that our listeners recognize that there are people that come into our lives in moments in time, and even when those moments might be short-lived, never underestimate the power of connection that can occur and how impactful it is when somebody from your past makes it a point to stay connected to you, even if it's virtually online, and then says, "Oh, I'm interested in what you're doing." It was such a compliment, and I felt so honored that after all these years, that there was something about our previous work and through our social media connection primarily that this moment in time you said, I want to be a part of this. And we couldn't be more happy to have you be a part of this community. And I know as we think about the mission of the HX Collective, it's to bring voices like yours, to share stories and experiences, and to really focus on some practical takeaways so that anyone who is listening, whether you're listening through the lens of your own work life and profession, as you're looking through the lens of your relationships that you then have with your coworkers, with your families, with your children, with your communities, or if you're really looking at a reimagined relationship with yourself. This is the community that is designed to really elevate that experience through the stories and the wisdom that we're going to learn more about today. Let's start with little at a very high level, and let's just talk about the concept of human flourishing. When I think about just as a subject matter, and let's face it, the concepts of human and flourishing, it can sound a little woo-woo. So when you think about it in the big picture, I would want to say, what is it about the concept of the human experience or human flourishing? Why is this such an essential part of daily living for you?
Yeah, so there's a lot there, and interestingly, your, I'll just say, appearance on my social media platform explaining what you were doing aligned perfectly with thoughts I was having about all of this, and so thanks again. Here's what I find to be so impactful about this topic, and quite frankly meaningful to me, and hope I think a lot of people. I think we're at a real inflection point where we're all witnessing, I'm witnessing, and I believe most people are witnessing how the forces of society are pulling us apart and not putting us back together. And I see that or in the context of COVID, how it created real social and professional sort of lag in development. We see it with social media, how it's creating sort of communication through a device versus face to face. We see it in, AI taking the voice out of, it can imitate voice, but it can't imitate nuance and tone. We see it in politics, trying to divide us, making it very difficult to want to engage with people that might not share your same viewpoint because it's kind of so toxic. And so all these forces are sort of stripping humanity or moving it further and further away, which I think the counterbalance is how do we get back to connection? Because we're meant to live in community, we're meant to live with each other, we're meant to intersect. So I believe that that's why it's incredibly meaningful to me to watch this happen and think, what can we do to try to bridge this divide just a little bit?
You throw out some really important factors, and this is often what occurs when you've got such a consistency of division. We start to almost be lulled into that this is the normal way of engaging. And yet, when you look how we're wired, you look at how people thrive generally in any aspect of their lives, it's not a solo sport. Human beings do not flourish. We do not become the best versions of ourselves in isolation or when we're surrounded by one perspective or one point of view. And so I love that this is speaking to you. And again, this is the opportunity. I love the word you used, bridge. That's what we're aiming to do here. We're just simply looking to be a respite, a place where people can pause, can reflect, can replenish, so that we can unite in the reclaiming of our humanity in ways that when we look at this surrounding world, there's a lot conspiring against us to take us away from what it means to be truly human.
Yeah, and can just to echo that, it seems like a massive Herculean effort to fix this, but it can just be little steps by each of us, little tiny things that can help add up over time. So it doesn't have to be one person solves the problem of society.
Well, let's look at it. We've mentioned often that the OJX collective is rooted in three lenses. We think that the human experience is very distinct and important through the lens of work, through the lens of relationships, and through the lens of self. I want to start with the lens of the workplace. So much of our early connection was in the professional context, and so much of what you're doing is on the working with executives and individuals and professionals. So when you think about the concept of elevating human flourishing in the workplace, share with us some of your perspectives on why, again, this is essential, that it's vital that when we look through this lens, that we can't ignore humanity or the human experience.
Absolutely. And I think I want to preface it by saying this topic is not just a feel good topic, it's actually dollars and cents good business to focus on this topic. So, my perspective is that because of remote work and hybrid work, which let's acknowledge is fabulous for many things, right? It helps families, it helps individuals get a break. There are plenty of benefits. However, the downsides are that we are less connected to one another's. And what happens there? So, less chance meetings in the hallway, which means ideas don't just naturally sort of organically bubble up. Lose the muscle of how to, particularly for young professionals, this is where I see it the most. The muscle of how do I sort of get the attention of someone more senior in a politically correct, appropriate way within the office? You don't know how to do that if you're not in the office. The chance interactions also build community, which build trust. And so what's happening is, yes, remote has a great place in some situations, but it's really breaking down our ability to develop trust in the workplace. And trust is what creates safety. That and again, these let me connect it to business in a second because yes, we all want to feel good at work. We want to bring our whole selves at work. We want to feel that our work matters and has meaning, and we want to feel that our judgment is trusted. That makes us as employees feel great. But why is it important for businesses? Because when you try to take the disparate experience of working remotely and say, how do I build trust and connection? Well, what am I getting as a business? I'm getting more engagement, more motivation when you feel that there's more meaning. And when there's a bit of empathy or connection, again, not just soft, fuzzy stuff, but empathy allows people to bring their whole selves to work and to work diligently, knowing that they're respected for who they are. So that was a mouthful, but I think when I bottom line it, it's that everybody, leaders and employees, particularly leaders, have an obligation or should be motivated to enhance their leadership skills and communication such that they can attempt to bring everyone into the fold and create what isn't naturally there anymore. And that's very, very hard to do.
It is. You know what I'm reminded of, and I don't know if this analogy is a good one, but as I was hearing you talk about things, it's a little bit like my relationship with exercise. Instead of like on an intuitive level, I know that spending time exercising, building muscle and strength, flexibility, like I know at a macro intellectual level that it's good for me. And yet I am struck by how often my own present comfort, how easy it is for me to abandon that which I know to be true. And I think remote work is a little bit like that. I think that there's plenty of evidence that suggests that when we come into the actual office and we will make an effort, not just simply to relocate our Zoom cameras, but rather we come into the office and we put attention and intention in building connections with our coworkers and our colleagues, that magic can happen. And it's good for our spirit and souls in the same way, like it's a better idea if I get my butt out of bed in the morning and go do some exercise or get to the gym. And yet, how often the comfort zone kicks in, and we lose sight of the fact that just because it's good for us doesn't mean we're actually leaning into it. I'd be curious to get your reactions to that to see if the analogy plays out. And then on a real practical level, what can leaders do in the face of that? But first, your reaction.
Yeah, I actually am smiling as you're telling that story because that is such a great analogy. I think it's the concept of friction is removed from our life in so many ways. So exercise. If we don't exercise, we sit on the couch, it feels good. There's not the friction of getting up, going and getting out into the cold, going to wherever we need to go. But there's a downside to that, right? Not just in how we feel or look physically, but the energy we bring and how we feel mentally. What I also feel that friction, remote work and hybrid work, I'm not gonna say it again, let's just, I am not dissing it completely. I just think we have to be aware of the downsides. The remote work and hybrid work remove friction of commuting, remove friction of getting to work and getting dressed, but the benefits are huge, and so much friction is removed from every interaction in society. We order in our meals through DoorDash, we, order in our groceries, we order in our pharmacy, stuff. We don't need to talk to the person at the bank anymore, to the person at the drugstore. So the more we remove friction to make our lives easier, the less connection and humanity we have. So I love your analogy because it makes me think of that, and the other day I was thinking, where where have we not completely removed shared experiences? And the 2 things I came up with, I'm sure there are many, many more, but going out to a restaurant is a community experience, which we haven't completely removed from our lives. Going to live music, but so many other things have just become a solo sport, as you say.
Yeah. Well, on a really practical level, you get to consult with high performing organizations. Clearly, when an organization brings in a certified professional coach, you can imagine that they're all a little ahead of the curve and what they value that outside advisor. What advice would you give to leaders if they wanted to elevate the human experience, if they wanted to create more attraction to in person office days? Are there things that you are observing or things that you would be recommending that leaders can do to really create that human experience in a way that's very attractive to the stakeholders in which it affects?
Yeah, yeah, of course, I think there when you just said that, there are 2 things that came to mind. There's sort of the tactical and the strategic. And so the tactical, I'm gonna spend less time on, but, people do a free lunch, a happy hour, these things. These are tactical things that can make people feel like part of community, an all hands on deck meeting, free coffee, okay? But and so much value to that. Strategically, the 2 things that I see most often are the concepts that, this idea that leadership demands firm control, and in many instances, it absolutely does, but that building trust and showing empathy are absolute strengths as well. In other words, I think leaders often think that empathy is being soft. I think that understanding what your employees may be going through is soft. And in fact, my belief and what I've seen to be true is you can be an absolutely impactful, strong leader focused on goals, focused on the bottom line, trying to get your team to achieve those goals in unison while also caring. And in fact, if you care, people will feel safe, people will feel that you trust them, and you'll get people more aligned. It's easier said than done, right? So to sort of bottom line what you asked, I think empathy is a strength and not a soft skill. And I'll just use an example. So, for example, if I have a deliverable that I want an employee to make sure they get done by a certain time, and they come and tell me, well, I've got this going on, that going on, that going on. By ignoring it, I'm not allowing them to, lean in and do what I need to be done. By saying I am empathetic, that sounds horrible, and identifying with them and helping find solutions that allow them to still meet the goal. The goal's not going to move, but the empathy creates the juice that allows the person to achieve what we still need to achieve as an organization. Does that make sense the way I described?
It does. In fact, like, as we sort of reflect on what I'm really taking away from what you're saying is that, well, first of all, that there are tactical things that one can do to sort of engineer stronger human connection, and you shouldn't be dismissive of the tactics, but it's incomplete. And what I'm hearing is that when we prioritize those in-person or together times, what is accessible and available to us is empathy. It's a level of trust, it's a level of validation. And when you use the analogy of the deliverable, what came to mind is it's one thing for me as a leader to make assignments and ask people to do work. It's quite another thing for a person to do the work, not just because they have to, but because they want to. That's the distinction I'm hearing. Am I getting that right?
You said it better, that you said that beautifully. Exactly, because just to riff on what you just said, why do they hopefully want to? Because they feel motivated, because they see that their work matters, because they've been given some degree of autonomy with that is appropriate for whatever level they're at, so that trust shows that their judgment matters, and then the caring, being able to bring your whole self to work. I mean, your dog dies, you still have a deadline. That empathy is gonna allow you to work in a difficult situation, hopefully. So yes, you said it beautifully. Ignoring the soft skills creates sort of a wall, and, this is overused expression, but it's a good expression. We don't leave ourselves at the door, right? So what happens at home in our lives, we bring to work. And if we ignore it, we're sort of ignoring the whole person that we're charged with delivering our business goals.
I love it. So I think a good takeaway for this lens is to recognize that when you think about human flourishing at work, it's not a nice to have, it's not a soft skill, it's an essential skill. It's essential to be strategic and to bring the most out of the stakeholders, the people who work with us, to create the capacities for them to be effective. And one of the strategies is to recognize when we have engagement in office, engagement, we're increasing the likelihood that those positive outcomes like empathy, like trust building, like relationship building can be met.
Correct, and you said it perfectly. It's not a perk, it's foundational to business and really the bottom line.
Well, Suzanne, again, I welcome you to the HX Collective as our ally. I'm so excited for folks to get to know you, not only through this conversation and through the lenses of work, relationships, and self, but so much more to come. Thank you, my friend. We'll see you soon. And I just so grateful for your time. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for being here. If today's conversation sparked something in you, we hope you'll carry it forward with curiosity, compassion, and courage. Subscribe to the show, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs it. Until next time, keep exploring what it means to be fully human.